It was supposed to be a quiet day on Station Deltanine. Dr. Kira Mason had just finished her morning scan reports when the ground shook beneath her feet. At first, she thought it was another cargo hauler docking too hard, but then came the sound heavy footsteps. Fast, panicked, and angry, the medbay doors slammed open. A massive shadow filled the frame. There, hunched and growling, stood a Vordak warrior, over 2.5 meters tall. Muscle-packed with skin the color of stormy skies, his sharp tusks flared as he roared in pain. "Make it stop. It itches." Kira stood frozen for a moment. She'd treated Vordaks before, usually after bar fights or battlefield injuries. But this one was different. His eyes were wild, filled with desperation, not rage, and he was scratching violently across his upper arms and neck. Thick skin that could stop a bullet was now covered in blotchy red patches. "Lie down," Kira ordered. Snapping back into medic mode, she activated her holoscanner. The alien stumbled forward, collapsing onto the reinforced table with a groan. "Don't touch it," he growled. "Just look. But don't touch." Kira glanced at her assistant, Ryan, who had stepped back nervously. She leaned closer to the screen as the scanner began mapping the alien's skin. What she saw made her breath catch. The rash wasn't just inflamed skin. There was movement, tiny waves under the surface. Wriggling and shifting like something alive, Kira zoomed in, switching to thermal mode. Whatever was inside his skin wasn't part of his body. It was foreign. "What happened?" she asked firmly. The Vordak, breathing heavily, said, "It started after we entered the ruins. On Garland 5, we were searching for tech. Ancient stuff. One of my squad touched something glowing. Some kind of vine or root. Was it organic? It didn't look alive. Not until it moved," he muttered. After that, he got the itch first. Then he lost his mind, started tearing at his skin, saying he heard voices. Then he exploded. Kira blinked. Exploded? From the inside, like something wanted out, she felt a chill crawl down her spine. The Vordak turned his head slightly, his voice quieter now. "I ran. I didn't want to be next, but then it started. The itching, the dreams, the sounds. He nodded, like whispers. "When I sleep, like something inside me, wanting me to listen." Kira exchanged a glance with Ryan, who looked pale. There was no record of any such infection. No known parasite matched this behavior. She turned back to the patient, trying to keep calm. "We need a biopsy. Just a small sample from the outer layer." "No," he growled. "If you cut it, it spreads faster. We tried that with the others, but I can't help without something to study," she insisted. The Vordak clenched his jaw, then nodded slowly. "Fine. One sample. But if I start to scream, you run." Kira prepped a sterile tool and moved carefully toward the rash. She made the tiniest incision. The skin opened and something twitched inside. A sliver of black, like a thread, wriggled and disappeared deeper into the muscle. The alien growled in pain. Suddenly, the scanner blinked. Movement detected not in the body. Kira turned to the screen. Ryan gasped. The rash wasn't just on the Vordak's body anymore. The edge of the medbay table was turning red, and small patterns were forming, like veins growing along the metal. Kira stepped back, horrified, whatever this was. "It could spread. Ryan, seal the room," she said quickly. Lights flickered as the medbay lockdown engaged. The Vordak ripped the table, eyes burning. "I told you," he said in a deep voice. "It's not a disease, doctor. It's alive." Kira stared at the infected table, then at the strange patterns pulsing under the alien skin. Her mind raced. If this thing was alive and intelligent, what did it want? The lights above flickered like nervous eyes watching the unknown. Dr. Kira Mason stood completely still as the red blotches spread further across the medbay table. She could not look away. The Vordak warrior was still breathing hard, his skin twitching as if something beneath it was trying to move on its own. The walls of the clinic were designed to withstand plasma blasts, but they were not built for whatever this thing was. Kira walked slowly to her scanner. Keeping her eyes on the readout, the organism inside the alien was not just under the skin, it was inside the blood vessels. No, it was around them, wrapping them, reacting to them. The sensor pulses triggered more movement each time. Whatever it was, it could feel technology. Kira adjusted the signal strength. The scanner went quiet for a moment. The movement slowed. That was the first sign this thing could be aware. "Do you feel it changing?" she asked the Vordak. He nodded slightly, sweat pouring down his neck, despite the cool air. "It calms when you stop scanning," he said. Kira didn't like that answer. Biological infections don't respond to being watched. Not like this. Ryan, her assistant, was standing near the door, clutching a sterilizer unit like a weapon. He was pale, breathing through his mouth, trying not to make noise. Kira turned to him and whispered, "I need you to prepare a cryosample box, but Dan, touch anything without gloves and a mask." He nodded and moved slowly toward the equipment cabinet. The scanner blinked again. A new reading appeared. Traces of unknown compounds, not carbon, not silicon, something else entirely. The material was binding with the alien's nervous system. It wasn't attacking, it was connecting, forming patterns that looked more like code than biology. Kira froze again. Code? She stared at the data. This wasn't a disease, it was an interface. "Can you still hear the voices?" she asked the Vordak. His eyes darted toward her, then to the ceiling. "They're louder now," he said. "Do they say anything clear?" He hesitated. "One word," he said. "Remember?" Kira stepped back as her mind began spinning through possibilities. Was this some kind of ancient tech? A living AI, a hive mind? The alien's breathing changed again, becoming slower, more focused. He stopped scratching. Kira noticed the redness on his arms beginning to fade just slightly. She looked at the sample box Ryan was preparing. The metal tweezers were shaking in his hands. He looked terrified. "Doctor," he whispered. "I think it's in the air." Kira turned sharply. "What do you mean?" He showed her the air quality scanner. There were microscopic particles floating in the room, glowing faintly under UV light. The same pattern as the ones on the alien's skin. They were airborne. Kira took a deep breath and tried not to panic. If it was in the air, then they were already exposed. She looked down at her own hands. Nothing yet, but the Vordak said the first symptom was the itch. "Ryan, are you feeling anything strange?" He shook his head quickly. "No itch, no whisper, nothing yet." The Vordak chuckled softly. A dark sound from a throat made of gravel, yet he said Kira had to act fast. She needed to find a way to understand this thing. Before it took control, she initiated a high-resolution bioscan. Using only passive waves, it showed clearer results now. The material in the alien's body was forming shapes, symbols, circular patterns, repeating in sequences. They weren't random, it was language, not just infection, but communication. "Can you understand it?" she asked quietly. The alien shook his head. "I feel it trying to speak, but my brain is too different." Maybe Kira's heart beat faster. Maybe a human mind could interpret the signal, or maybe it would destroy her still. She had come out here to help those in need, even if they weren't human. "Get the neural interface, Ryan," she said. Her assistant stared at her in horror. "You're going to connect to that?" Kira nodded. "I need to know what it wants before it's too late." She looked again at the patterns glowing softly on the alien's arms, and for the first time, she thought she saw something inside them. Not just light, not just movement, but eyes. Ryan stumbled backward as the neural interface buzzed softly in his hands. The clinic's lights flickered again, but this time they didn't come back on fully. They stayed dim, like the room was holding its breath. Dr. Kira Mason reached for the interface slowly. Her gloves shook slightly, but her eyes were steady. The Vordak warrior was silent now, watching, waiting. Like something inside him was listening to the metallic floor under his table, pulsed faintly with the same strange patterns from his skin. Blue rings, red veins twisting and growing. Kira placed the interface pad on the side of her head, and everything changed the world. Blinked once, then again. Then her vision doubled the walls of the clinic, faded into shadows, and whispers she heard 1,000 tiny voices. Whispering at the edge of thought. They weren't words, they were memories, echoes, images poured into her mind. A jungle planet lit by twin suns, a massive tree covered in glowing leaves. A group of tall figures standing in a circle with their hands raised, then fire screams darkness. The interface shut itself off with a sharp hiss. Kira gasped and tore it from her temple. Sweat poured down her back. Ryan rushed to her side, his voice trembling. "What did you see?" She blinked hard, trying to separate what was real from what was memory. "Not a disease," she said finally. "Not a weapon either. It's a message." The Vordock spoke, or maybe not him. Maybe it was the thing inside him. "Then you've heard us too," Ryan looked at the alien, then at Kira. "What is it trying to say?" Before Kira could answer, a sharp alarm shrieked through the medbay. "Air filters compromised, containment breach, all systems red." Ryan ran to the console. A digital map of the station bloomed on the screen. Infection markers were spreading from the clinic outward. Into the hallway, into the vents. Kira felt a tingle on the back of her neck. She reached up and scratched just once, a small movement, but enough to freeze her in place. She looked at Ryan. He was already scratching his arm. No rash yet, but the pattern had begun. The Vordock sat up slowly, strangely calm. "You should not fight it," he said. "That's what kills us, the resistance." Kira clenched her fists. "What happens if we don't resist? You join. You remember you carried the voice. We don't want to carry anything," she snapped. "We want to survive." The Vordock tilted his head, but it shows. Kira turned back to the scanner. The particles in the air were reorganizing, moving like a swarm of tiny minds, like they were mapping the room. Learning the shape of everything, including them. Including her. She grabbed a containment capsule from the wall. "If we can trap a cluster of it, maybe we can isolate the communication node. Maybe even talk to it without full exposure." She opened the case. The swarm reacted instantly, pulling together in a tight knot. Floating like a glowing jellyfish in the air, it hovered near her hand. Then pulsed once blue light, then red, then blue again. A rhythm, not random. A signal. Kira tapped the capsule's trigger. The containment field snapped shut. The light inside pulsed faster. Ryan looked at it nervously. What if it's calling for more? Kira didn't answer. She was staring at the pulse. It matched something she had seen before back in the vision, the circle of tall beings around the tree. They had pulsing lights too. They weren't infected. They were connected. Maybe this was how they shared thought across time, across minds. She turned to the Vordock. "You said your squad tried to fight it. What happened when they stopped resisting?" He didn't speak, but his eyes darkened. "They changed," he said. "Not dead, not alive either. Oh, something else, like walking history." The door to the medbay shuddered. Something on the other side was banging. Not fists, but claws, long, slow, scraping sounds. "They're here." The Vordock whispered. "Who's here?" Kira asked. He looked at her. "The ones who listened too late." The scraping on the other side of the medbay door grew louder, slower, now deliberate. As if whoever or whatever was outside wasn't in a rush. They were waiting. Kira stood frozen, her thoughts racing faster than her heartbeat. Her medical oath screamed to protect life, any life, but her instincts told her this thing wasn't just life, it was something more. Something ancient, something dangerous. Ryan was pale now, sweat collecting along his forehead as he stared at the containment capsule. Pulsing on the counter inside the floating cluster of particles, blinked blue-red, then blue again in steady rhythm. It looked calm. To calm, Ryan turned to Kira, his voice shaking. "We need to tell command." Before it spreads further, Kira hesitated, then tapped her Comes. "This is Dr. Mason from Medbay Delta 9. We have a containment issue. Unknown infection or entity biological in origin, possibly sentient silence." Then a sharp reply crackled through the speaker. "This is Commander Argus. Stand by for immediate sterilization protocol." Kira's heart sank. Sterilization protocol meant airlock decompression, fire erasure. Everything in the medbay, including them, would be wiped out to contain the threat. Kira replied fast, her voice strong negative. "We have signs of sentience and communication." Requesting delay on protocol, another pause, then the cold voice of Argus returned. "You have 10 minutes, Doctor. Extract yourself if you can. That thing is not to leave the station." Ryan stared at her. "They're going to burn us out." Kira looked at the Vordak warrior. He hadn't moved. He was still on the table, his skin glowing faintly with the strange blue light of the infection. He didn't even flinch. "At the news, I knew this would happen," he said. "Quietly, we tried to warn the others before they didn't listen. They destroyed everything, but it doesn't die, it waits. It remembers." Kira stepped forward. "What is it remembering?" The Vordak's voice was strange now, layered like two voices speaking at once. The infection was speaking with him. "Through him, of him, we were a people of knowledge of light. But fear burned our voices from the stars. Only fragments remain. Now we live where memory can survive." In Hosts and Those Who Listen, Ryan grabbed Kira's arm, his fingers tight. "We need to go now. The exit hatch can still take us to the supply tunnel." Kira shook him off. "I need more time." Ryan's eyes flared with panic. "More time for what? To talk to it, to save it, to risk your mind, your body for an alien whisper." Before Kira could answer, the Comes blinked again. "New signal, not from command, encrypted, unknown source." She tapped it. The message was short. "Your patient is marked for erasure. Disobey and lose your license. Your station, your future." Kira stared at it. They weren't giving her a choice, but she'd already made one. She turned to the containment capsule and opened the secondary interface. She adjusted the signal output just slightly. The rhythm changed. Blue, blue, red, red. Pause, repeat. A different pattern, a question. "Do you understand?" The pulse paused, then returned. "Yes." Then a flood of images hit her again. Not through the neural pad, through the air, through the light. Ancient cities buried in sand, spiral towers filled with singing light, children of stars walking across oceans. Then fire, always the fire. Ryan shouted. "Kira, we have 3 minutes." The scraping at the door turned into pounding. Metal groaning. Kira turned to the Vordak. "Can you walk?" He stood slowly, stronger now, calm, glowing. "I can more than walk." Kira opened the emergency tunnel hatch. The air was thick with heat and warning lights as they stepped inside. She sent one last message to command. "Subject is alive. Intelligent mobile. I am evacuating to research deck for do not engage." No reply came, only silence. Behind them, the door burst inward. A wave of black tendrils slid across the medbay floor, filling the space where they had just stood. Alive, searching the walls of research deck. 4 were quiet. Too quiet for a medical wing. Too quiet for a place that once held over 30 researchers. Now, it was just dust flickering. Lights and the hum of systems left running without purpose. Dr. Kira Mason led the Vordak down the hallway, scanning every doorway with a twitch in her eyes. Ryan followed close behind, dragging the portable scanner and keeping his gaze locked on the Vordak's back. The alien walked like someone reborn, his movements smooth, his body glowing faintly under the skin. Blue light pulsing alive. They reached the central lab and sealed the doors behind them. Kira activated the neural stabilizer and turned to Ward. Ryan placed the containment capsule here and linked the translator. Ryan hesitated. His hand hovered over the capsule. "It's not trying to break out." Kira nodded slowly. "It doesn't want to escape. It wants to speak." She turned to the Vordak. "Can you feel it? Is it still inside you?" He looked down at his arms, where the strange light danced just beneath the skin. Yes. But it's not painful anymore. It's warm. It's waiting. For someone to listen, Kira connected the capsule to the translator and routed the signal through. The audio output, a moment of static. Then a sound, not a voice exactly, but not noise. Either it was like hearing thoughts spoken in a language that was never meant for mouths. The translator began to parse it word by word, shape by shape. The voice became real. We remember, we reach. We were broken. We are pieces. Ryan stepped back, his eyes wide. What is it saying? Kira listened closely. She spoke slowly, repeating what the machine translated. They are fragments of something ancient, something that was destroyed. Now they survive by attaching to hosts, by sharing memory, not as a virus, but as remembrance. Ryan shook his head. But why the itching? Why the rash? Why the fear? Because memory is not gentle, the voice replied. Memory is truth, and truth scars. The Vordock sat down on the lab bench, his breathing steady. You feel different, Kira said. He nodded. I see things now, things I never knew. I feel pain from 1,000 years ago, a city I never visited, a child I never met. But also one to beauty peace. It's all in me now. Ryan turned to Kira. This isn't medicine. This is possession. No. Kira said firmly, this is connection. We've always assumed life spreads through blood, breath, or violence. But what if it spreads through memory? Through understanding. The translator pulsed again. We are not conquerors. We are not infection. We are the voice that was silenced. We are the scream that became whisper. We need form to speak. We need flesh to remember. Kira felt a tug in her chest. Like a memory that didn't belong to her, a garden under twin suns, a goodbye that never ended. She looked at the Vordock. Can it leave you? He closed his eyes. Maybe, but it doesn't want to. It wants to share, not control. Kira reached for the neural interface again. Ryan grabbed her arm. Are you seriously doing this again? It could hurt you worse. This time I need to know more before they burn everything down. She connected the interface. The flood of images hit her instantly, this time stronger, this time clearer. She saw the last days of a world made of crystal towers and singing trees. A people with skin like starlight, holding hands in circles, sending pieces of themselves into the wind as their cities fell. They didn't want to die, they wanted to be remembered. She pulled the interface off, gasping, they didn't infect us, they entrusted us. The lab lights flickered again, an alert blinked across the screen. Shuttle approaching, unknown signature, heavily armed, ETA, 5 minutes. Ryan cursed under his breath, they're coming to finish the job. To erase everything, Kira looked at the containment unit, then at the Vordeck, then at her own hand. Her skin was beginning to glow. Just slightly blue, steady, alive. Ryan looked at her, his voice low. You've been touched. To Kira nodded slowly, yes, and I understand now. We can't destroy them because they are us. The sirens began their long, hollow cry across research deck, for it was a sound meant to inspire urgency. To remind everyone on the station that decisions must now be final. Kira Mason stood at the center of the lab, her hand glowing faintly. With the same pulsing light as the Vordock's skin, the voice inside her was quiet. Not whispering, not pushing, just waiting. Like a guest who had knocked and was now seated at the edge of memory, Ryan paced behind her, his eyes jumping from monitor to owl. Monitor, the shuttle is almost here. No response to Hale's military-class weapons active. That's an execution squad. They're not here to ask questions. Kira didn't speak right away. She was staring at the capsule where the particle cluster floated still, pulsing in blue and red, but now slower. Gentler, like it had grown tired of running. She looked at the Vordock. How do you feel? He turned toward her with calm eyes. I feel full. Like I carry more than myself now, but it's not heavy. It's like I was always meant to hold this, Ryan snapped. You're both infected. You're talking like this is some gift. It's rewriting your minds. It's stealing you from yourselves. Kira shook her head. No, it's giving back what was lost. The interface from before was still on the table. She picked it up and handed it to Ryan. Try it. Just once, see what they really are. Ryan stared at the device like it might bite him. Then slowly he took it, and placed it behind his ear. The reaction was instant. His back straightened. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came. Then his eyes widened, and for a moment, everything in the room felt still. Quiet wholly, he removed the device and blinked. I saw them like children made of stars. They weren't trying to survive, they were trying to be remembered. Kira nodded exactly. That's the purpose. They aren't spreading like a virus they're offering. Ryan stepped back. Then how do we help them without becoming them completely? The translator blinked again. A new message echoes: do not erase. They blend, they live beside the mind, must open. The skin must allow. Kira turned to the central console. She began rewriting the medbay protocols. Disabling the sterilization protocols, reactivating old communication lines. If they were going to survive this, they needed a way to show the truth, not hide from it. A tone sounded from the console. The shuttle had landed. Boots now touched the ground 1 floor above. Time was running out. The Vordak stood slowly. There is a way to prove we are not a threat, but it requires trust and risk. Kira looked at him. What do we need to do? You need to let it grow. Let it fully bloom. The light, the memory, the voice. It cannot speak its full truth in fragments. Only in harmony. Ryan looked nervous. What if our minds can't hold that much? Then we die knowing we tried to understand. Kira walked to the interface. She modified the frequency, opened every neural channel, tuned her body to receive the full signal. She stepped into the containment field and let it touch her. The light spread across her skin like water. It filled her eyes, her lungs, her blood, but it did not hurt. It sang a song of cities lost to time, of friends who died holding the names of stars in their mouths, of galaxies we forgot, even as we named them. Outside, the soldiers breached the upper corridor, storming in with weapons drawn. They reached the lab doors and cut through the seal. They burst in, ready to kill, but then they froze, because Kira was standing there, glowing alive. Not just as a woman, but as a beacon, and behind her, the Vordak stood like a guardian of something sacred. And Ryan, half glowing himself, eyes filled with tears, spoke the words that none of them expected. She listened, and now so will you. No one spoke when the soldiers lowered their weapons. No one moved when Kira raised her hand, glowing with memory. The silence inside the lab felt deeper than space itself. Not empty, just waiting. The commander stepped forward, visor down, armored boots heavy on the metal floor. He pointed at Kira, and then at the Vordak. Explain what we are. Seeing Kira didn't answer with words, she stepped aside and opened the central display. A holoprojection lit the room. Not a battle, not a warning, but memories. Shared from the entity now living inside her. They saw planets blooming under twin suns. They saw crystal towers humming with song. They saw the fall flame sphere. The silence that followed, and then they saw the particles spinning across the galaxy like dandelion seeds. Carrying history in every cell, the voice returned through the translator. We do not seek to conquer. We seek to remember, to live through you. The commander removed his helmet slowly. He was older than he looked, lines carved from years of watching things die. He looked at Kira. And what happens if we say no? Kira stepped forward. Then the last of a peaceful civilization is erased forever, and we become the ones who chose fear instead of understanding. The commander turned to his squad. They were watching the projection, eyes wide, silent. Changed. One of them, a young woman barely out of academy, reached up and touched her own neck. It itched just a little, but enough to know she had been touched too. Kira noticed and nodded softly. It spreads when minds are open. Not by force, but by invitation. The Vordak spoke, then his voice deep and layered. I was trained for war. I lived by blade and blood. But now I carry starlight and silence. I remember people I never knew, and I would not trade that for anything. The commander walked toward. Kira looked her in the eyes and asked, what happens next? Kira breathed slowly. Now we make a choice. Do we become part of something larger, something older? Or do we kill it because it scares us? He stared at her for a long moment, then lowered his weapon fully and spoke. Broadcast it to the entire station. Let them see, let them choose. Kira nodded and activated the station-wide "Comes the story of the fallen civilization." The message within the particles, the truth in the voice, all of it streamed across the airwaves, across screens, into minds. Some resisted, they turned off the feed, closed their doors, but others listened. Others heard the whisper, others felt the echo. Across the station lights began to glow. Not alarms, not warnings, but gentle pulses of blue signals of memory, of contact, of choice. The entity did not spread like fire, it spread like hope. Quiet, slow, patient Kira sat on the floor beside the capsule. She placed her hand on the table and closed her eyes. She felt the voices, the ones who came before, the ones who still waited in the dust between stars, and she whispered back. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. Outside the station, the derelict colony ship that once seemed a threat now floated in stillness. No weapons activated, no approach made, just a presence, as if waiting for the answer humanity had just given. The commander looked around the lab one more time, then turned to leave. No report was written that day. No war started. No warning sirens howled again. It's because something greater had been heard. And sometimes the cure for fear is not destruction, but contact, not silence, but story. And so it began. Not an invasion, not an infection, but a remembering. And in that remembering, something new was born. Something shared, something human, and something more.